Morning, Dad.
Hey, going for a run?
Yeah, you should join me like you used to.
Not with my old knees and back.
Try Xanthicin. It could really help. Plus, it's super safe, Dad, and it's good for your heart and brain.
Xanthicin fights aging with astaxanthin, nature's most powerful antioxidant. And with 3 times the absorption and superior purity, it's the brand physicians trust. Find it at getxantho.com and these retailers. Keep doing what you love with Xanthicin.
All right, how's it going, everybody? Episode 31 here on Hawaii Football Now, presented by Xanthicin. Jordan, Helle, Hunter Hughes back with you here for another edition of HFN, also brought to you by Spectrum Mobile and our good friends at Hawaii USA FCU as well. We record this Wednesday morning, March 30th, our final episode of March. Time is absolutely flying by. Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. Hawaii time, as we're all set to release this tomorrow on the 31st of March. Spring ball is rolling along for the University of Hawaii. I know Hunter's been out to a couple of practices. Our producer, Jaron, has been there as well, working hard for ESPN Honolulu, bringing you some of the behind-the-scenes inside aspects of spring practice. That is obviously going to be a big portion of our focus once again here on episode 31. There is a buzz in the air, I guess you could say, which is usually the case with spring ball, right? It is a time of optimism. It is a time of belief and hope. And so far, I think, at least from the public perspective, the University of Hawaii under the new head coaching staff, it's trying to capture that, and I think is doing a good job so far. What that translates to on the field is yet to be seen, obviously. For our opening drive, we did want to mention and give a little plug to some of the other ESPN Honolulu programming. You can check out some of the mic'd up segments. They had Braden Shager mic'd up last week, Saturday, which is available on ESPN Honolulu platforms. The extended version is on YouTube. That may be the easiest way to access that. From my understanding, Panay Pavihi was mic'd up yesterday at practice on Tuesday, and his little package is set to be released sometime. Might be out probably by the time you listen to this on Thursday when we release this episode. Our guy Jaron, as we mentioned, has been out there putting it all together. He's behind the scenes. He's doing our show. He's doing that. He's shooting footage. He's editing. He's putting together these clips, making sure it's family friendly on the mic'd up segments. Like it is, he's working hard out there. So shout out to our guy, Jaron, and a lot of cool stuff. I mean, like this is awesome, right? We not only have fans back at practice, which started last week, Saturday, once some of those restrictions lifted, right? Basically last week, Friday, we're kind of back to full go when it comes to, masks and vaccine requirements and all that kind of stuff to get onto campus. And so Saturday, everybody was welcome. And there were a lot of faces out there, but you not only get that for those of you who maybe couldn't make it, or those of you who weren't close enough to the field to hear every single conversation, we bring you some of that behind the scenes stuff with our mic'd up segment. So be sure to check that out on the ESPN Honolulu platforms, whatever is convenient for you. But pretty cool. And I guess for you, Hunter, like, I don't know if you ever had a microphone on you, like while at practice, but with you got cameras around and things like that. Do you kind of forget about it? Like you see some guys play it up, like they'll go over to the guy with the camera. I mean, the guy with the microphone and say a little something into the shoulder pads or whatnot. But well, is it a distraction? Like how does this all play out on the field if you're one of the guys?
Yeah, no, I with the mic rather than the camera. If the camera's there, I feel like it changes the way that you play, because you've got that awareness that something's right behind your shoulder. But if the mic is right there, you can keep kind of just doing your thing. I will say there's a better incentive to try to talk smack, try to be funny, because it's not so much what the fans think or what people at home think. It's what the boys and the team think. They want to hear if you've got good smack talk and if you're funny or not. So and I will say this: everybody on the team knows who's mic'd up, especially at a place like Hawaii where we don't do this quite as often. Whenever it does happen, everybody gets really, really excited and has a lot of fun with it. So yeah, that's what I would say. to being mic'd up. I've only had it happen one time. It was a good time.
Yeah, it always brings out some of the silliness that comes out on the field, but also some of the seriousness, as well as some of the contact that goes with it, even though it is just spring practice, right? And maybe the tempo when it comes to full go is a little dialed back just to preserve everybody's body. But yeah, it'll be cool. So make sure you check that out. Whether it's on YouTube, they got some stuff on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, as well as the website. So a lot of opportunities to go check that out, as well as all the other coverage of spring practice going on from ESPN Honolulu and our family of networks, platforms, all of the above. So that'll be pretty fun. And as we mentioned, as we get into the game time segment of HFN, again, episode 39 already, Jordan and Hunter with you. It was an opportunity for the first time in a while for fans to go and just kind of be around, right? Like that is, I think, the beauty of practice, right? It's not a game. It's got a little bit of a different flow to it. If you're a spectator, right? For practice, obviously for the players, for the coaches, it's very structured. Don't get me wrong. Like it is very structured. It is very scripted how they're going from period to period, how they're going from drill to drill. But for fans, right, you can kind of pay attention to one position group for a little while. You can pay attention to another position group for a little while. You can kind of move around the stands because it's not fully packed, right? So it's a little different viewing experience. And I think there was a lot of excitement for folks who got the chance to get out there on Saturday or yesterday to really sort of check this out, right? And see what the buzz is about sort of in person. You had folks in the stands, you had folks sort of around the field, you had alumni back, you had folks associated with the program back, you had guys taking shelter in the shade of the parking structure, sort of viewing the field from the view you got there. Like, it was kind of what you would expect for the first open practice of the season. Hunter, from your perspective, from where you were at, paint the picture for us.
Man, it was awesome. It was just awesome. First of all, to be down there, new coach, not new coach. It was just good to be down at practice again. I think I speak for all of the alumni, and there were quite a few of them in attendance on Saturday, that we missed the opportunity to come down and see the team. That's very much a big part of our lifeblood still, is how's the team doing? How are the boys doing? Have you heard from any of the guys? Like, what's the vibe? Like, how are we going to do this year? I mean, if you still live on the island as a former University of Hawaii football player, you ache to be down there. You ache to be down there, getting in the mix with the guys, chopping it up. Because that's a big part of the whole experience from a player's perspective. I mean, there were high school recruits on the sideline that are in communication with coaches on the current team right now that are trying to get a feel for what University of Hawaii football is all about. So Saturday was a first step in my mind towards getting a good understanding of what that fully is like for them. I mean, you saw the guys run out there, and our strength and conditioning coach kind of led a Wolf of Wall Street, and the whole team is doing that, combined with the sprinkled in there chi-hoos that you would come to expect with all of the Polynesian and heritage of University of Hawaii football. I mean, it was fun, Jordan. I don't know if you can fully epitomize what the spirit of being around University of Hawaii football is, but it felt very similar to the Rolo era whenever I was down there. Guys just relaxed, happy to be out there on the field, and just having a good time. But then also, I'll pair that with a highly competitive environment where many position groups have a full-on free battle for who wants to take a starting job. So from all of those perspectives, man, masks are gone, people are welcome, alumni are celebrated, recruits are there being pulled in, lured, the whole vibe, man. Even some of our long-term media friends that are down there. I always enjoy seeing Stephen Tsai from the time I was a player till now. I've always enjoyed our talks, and it just felt like home. That's the best way I could kind of describe it. So I had a great time, and went back on Tuesday. I wanted some more.
And practice on Saturday was pushed back a little bit, right? Because of
Mhm.
the anticipated weather, and then ended up being like a pretty hot midday practice
Got nice and
on
sunburned.
Saturday.
It's
Yeah.
still on my nose, bro.
Yeah, and I don't know if folks packed the sunscreen because they weren't anticipating maybe the weather to open up and the sun to shine through, but that was the case. And so, with that scene, right, with that energy sort of surrounding practice, if you will, that upbeat sort of optimism that comes with it, that they've sort of crafted, they've created, that comes with having people there for the first time in a long time at a practice for that program. What did you see on the field? You mentioned some of the competitiveness, right? Guys getting after it. But did anything sort of stand out to you, whether it was an individual, position group, a particular battle, for playing time that you saw play out? Positively or negatively? Like what were you seeing in some of these some of these guys as they're out there, battling, as you point out?
Yeah. First of all, just because he stands out, the lefty from Wazoo, Cameron Cooper, the lefty quarterback, who just came in from a graduate transfer. Um, he was taking a lot of the reps at the ones, if you can call it the ones. I want to preface that with our fans listening at home. Spring ball is kind of different, where you will have offensive linemen sprinkled through the ones, the twos, and even the third group of guys, just trying to get um, players experience at different positions and things of that nature. So it's not quite as set in stone as ones, twos, threes as you will have in the fall. um, he was doing his thing. The dude can run a little bit. I was impressed with that. Again, I'm a quarterback, so I was down there with the QBs doing basic quarterback drills, just trying to get a feel for who's here, what's the feel. The other guy that kind of caught me off guard was Chad Owens Jr. The dude's got swag just like his dad, and threw a pretty good ball. I got to admit, and one of the few QBs who came over and dabbed me up, which I appreciate. Outside of my boy Armani Eden, of course, who's like family. Yeah, so QBs were doing their thing. Wide receivers too. That was another group that I saw a lot of buzz with, and in particular, it kind of felt like Coach Timmy Chang's pet project, if you will. It seemed like he was most evident and most focused on the wide receiver core. A lot of coaches tend to go to, we talked about it in former episodes, tend to go to different position groups based on their upbringing, based on their skill set, their familiarity. Coach Timmy's is the wide receiver. You would think maybe he was over at the QBs and stuff, but that was definitely more Shoemaker. But Coach Timmy Chang was down there talking about leverages, getting out of your breaks. Really, I would even say getting hard on some of our wide receivers, trying to coach them up and get them ready for the season. So I always kind of look for that, because each head coach is different, and it's just going to be a different vibe whenever they're on different position groups. So yeah, other than that, Jordan, they're not in full pads just yet. They're still kind of taking their time. So on the defensive side of the football, you're going to get what's called thud tempo. So guys come up, they get like a nice hard warm hug from the defense, but that's about it. Coaches are yelling at them, stay up, stay up, stay up. And so you can't quite get a feeling on the D linemen, the linebackers, or even the DBs on how they're doing, because they're not playing to full contact just yet. But we're still at the start of spring ball, a good month still in front of us. A lot of good things still to be seen.
Yeah, the whistles and the stay up yells, that's always a good sign of a good thudded practice.
And stay off the QB.
Stay off the QB. Yeah, that's another familiar refrain. I think it's interesting to hear, right? Coach Chang, and that's something that was more or less reported, in that he was going to help focus on the wide receivers. At this point, it is very introductory, right? It is very educational. a lot of instruction, a lot of basics. You're teaching a lot of individual technique, and for these guys, I'm going to imagine that practice number, what is it, 3 of spring practice, which was Saturday. You're not going to be able to really tell, what exactly this offense is going to look like just yet, right? I mean, it's not like they're out there running around in 11 on 11 a whole bunch and doing those kinds of things. Still a little early, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there were a couple guys that immediately stood out just for what we in the business call the eye test. Number 7, Jordan Murray from Missouri State, the transfer portal, looked like a man amongst boys out there. Got me feeling all insecure, needing to go to the gym just looking at him. Just an absolute unit at tight end for us. It's always interesting having the tight ends out there. It's just kind of that they look different than every other position. They're usually about as tall as a offensive lineman, but built like a wide receiver, or sometimes in this guy's case, built like a linebacker. And it's fun to see them in the mix on the offensive side of the football, seeing them run routes, seeing their hands. You're kind of at that point of spring ball where you don't get quite as much of the one-on-ones, but you can see guys make plays in kind of the skelly periods and kind of the walkthrough times. And it's kind of a nice introduction of these players to guys like us in the media and fans out there as well. Like, oh, cool, that this guy transferred over. Let's see how he does. He's in the mix now. So kind of little things like that. And a lot of guys out there, I'm scanning the roster right now. I want to make a point to at least introduce myself or keep an eye out at next practice. I know that linebacker from Mililani transfer from Nebraska, right? I want to keep an eye on him because he's potentially could potentially fill the shoes of someone like Darius Muasau on our defense. That we desperately need that leader and that role to be filled on the defensive side of the football as well.
Yeah, that's Wyndon Ho'ohuli, of course. Who's back home, and that was one of the big headlines of the offseason. Is Ho'ohuli coming in, and you got a guy like Jordan Murray, right, at 6'4". I think he's listed at 233, 235, something like that. Like, look, the dude had a really good career at Missouri State at the FCS level, and was very athletic. And if they can get him in on some matchups, like, why not utilize a guy like that, right? Even though we've pointed out a few times, like, tight end always is kind of a weird thing to talk about with a Hawaii football fan. Sometimes it's a dirty word at times. Sometimes, like, hey, what are we doing there, right? Some of the best offenses haven't quite deployed it, but again, weapons are weapons, man. Out
if
there.
If nothing else, bring the guy out for the coin toss just for intimidation factor. Because him in the all black Hawaii getup, it would be intimidating if I was on the other team.
You need those guys, right? First guy off the bus. You need those guys for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. So last week we talked a little bit about the offense, some guys, some positional breakdowns, just sort of some names that jump out and what things could look like. So we of course can't neglect the defense, and we saved that for this week. So I'll tell you what, we'll get into a little bit of that, and then we'll take our halftime break here. We can maybe focus on the front seven, and then maybe the secondary on the back end here. You mentioned a guy like Wyndon Ho'ohuli, right? And I'm curious to see how they deploy him, and I'm going to imagine it's in a multitude of ways, knowing his skill set and knowing Coach Yoro and how adaptable and malleable his defenses, I would imagine, are going to be just with his background. But I mean, you got the defensive line, right? And on the interior, you got guys like Blessman Ta'ala, who can bench press a bus. You got John Tui Tupou, who I came on kind of late last year, right? Fulton Shaw's in there as well. Some familiar names back from last season. And then, the pass rush, that's going to be huge. That's going to be huge for this group, especially because I think, with Todd Graham defenses the last couple of years, a lot of that pass rush was manufactured from guys on the back end, right? Whether it was linebackers, whether it was safeties, guys like Corey Bethley, and they made up for maybe some undersized guys up front by being really creative. And maybe we'll see more of that, right? And that's where I think a guy like Wyndon Ho'ohuli comes in, because you got Andrew Choi, who is back from injury, of the relentless Choi brothers that have come through this program. Jonah Kahavai Welch is in there, Tariq Jones, Ezra Evi Malo, He's the guy who played a little bit last year as well and had some success. And then you got Wyndon, right, who transferred to UH after a redshirt season at Nebraska. He can play inside, he can play outside as a linebacker. I gotta imagine they're gonna use him to rush the passer. They're gonna use him in coverage. They're gonna use him all over the place. Is basically what I'm gonna anticipate seeing that dude all over. But before we discuss a few more of the linebackers, your thoughts just on the defensive line and maybe if you noticed anything on Saturday.
Yeah, one other guy that's kind of on that edge, almost linebacker position is Panay Paviti, my former teammate, who, if just my observation, a lot of guys, I guess, would tip their cap to him as one of the leaders on that defense. He's one of the biggest guys on our defense, so that already kind of helps with that. And he's also a super senior, as we would like to call it. I joked with him on Saturday that he's got to be working on his PhD in human resources at this point. I think that's his focus or something of that nature. And so, yeah, he's just been around. He knows what it's like to play Division I football and has been doing it for a very long time now. That just adds a different presence on the team. It adds a little bit of calmness when you're down in the trenches against a great offensive line or a great offense like we have in our conference. And I know we're going to be looking to him a lot this year to kind of be that for us. So I'm excited to see what sort of defense we put on the field after such amazingly productive years that we had under the Graham era. I would love if we continued that momentum, because there's something comforting. We've talked about it on the podcast. There's something comforting about having a rock solid defense that just, that if we need them, that they can get a stop for us. That is invaluable in the game of football, and would love if we could do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at last year, right? I mean, that team won them some games, I think, kept them in some games, 100%. Gave them a chance. When
we know that as struggled. Bears fans, Jordan.
Yes, run the football and play defense, right? That was the motto. And it's funny enough because I think that frustrates a lot of people, but I wish the Bears would go back to that sometimes. But I digress. as Justin Fields, just not a lot of help there. But anyway, you mentioned Panay Paviti, and he's another guy, and I totally echo what you were saying, because he and guys like Wyndon Ho'ohuli, maybe those hybrid type guys, right? And that's what Hawaii's defense has been the last number of years. It's just finding these tweeners that can be productive in different roles, right? And then you got Isaiah Tufanga back, who I think will continue to develop and continue to get better and better. He was, I think, terrific last year, filling in on a number of spots because of injury and the like. And after he transfers home from Oregon State, you got junior college All-American Damari Blanks, who comes in, played his JUCO ball in California. You got JC transfer Noah Kemma, played his junior college ball in Utah. So this is a group there are a lot of transfers, right? Tufanga, Ho'ohuli, Blanks, Kemma, like a lot of guys who have experience elsewhere, some junior college, some Power 5, a whole mix in there. You got a guy like Pavihi. There's some others in the mix as well. But for this linebacking core, I think on the defensive line, once again, this is no surprise, but it's not going to be the biggest group when you compare it to other schools that we go up against on the defensive line. That's kind of sort of been the reality for the University of Hawaii. They've made up for it in different ways, quickness, scheme, and things of that nature. But look, this linebacker core, they're going to be asked to do a lot. I think they're going to be asked to do a lot, not just getting after the passer, but also in run support and being able to work, as always, but definitely in partnership with that defensive line. But of the position groups, I'm pretty excited about this linebacker core. I think it can be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm optimistic as well. And definitely on the defensive side of the football, probably more than anything, I would expect us to make some late in the year transfer portal moves. I'm still very intrigued to see what is possible in terms of getting guys here, getting them registered for classes. There's a lot that goes into getting people here plugged in and able to put on a jersey rather than just giving them a call and, buying them a plane ticket. There's so much more involved in getting them into University of Hawaii as students, getting them through compliance, making sure they're NCAA qualified. All of that goes into that. But the conversations that we've had with guys like Coach Abe Elaminian, and even Coach Yoro, they're very, very still focused on kind of being the scrappers in the recruiting process, and the advantages that the transfer portal allows for us as a program, I think could be very advantageous on the defensive side of the football, particularly on our D line, then maybe even peppering a couple more linebackers just to get in the mix. You always need guys. Nicks and knacks happen. It's a long season. We travel more than any other team in the country. The guys that take the brute force of that are the D line, the linebackers, the guys that are required to bring that physical presence along with our O line. But from a position group standpoint, we could use as many as we could in that perspective.
Yeah, I agree with you there. All really good points. We're going to go ahead, take our halftime break here. Come back, we'll get into some of the secondary that we'll be keeping our eye on for the University of Hawaii, as well as update you on some moves, some personnel moves that, like Hunter said, I think will be a continuing development. It's not just signing day anymore. The recruiting season is year round. And the roster building is year-round, no doubt about that. But before we take the halftime break, have you heard about this amazing supplement called astaxanthin? Doctors and pharmacists recommend it for everything from joint and muscle function to cholesterol health and cognitive function, even anti-aging. But did you know only one brand delivers 3 times more astaxanthin to your body, making it a better buy than the competition? Introducing Xanthicin, available at getxantho.com. You can find it at Newtown Square Pharmacy, Down to Earth Kaka'ako, GNC stores, as well as Pharmacare Hawaii. Again, learn more at getxantho.com. That's GetZantho.com. Second half coming up.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, second half time here on Hawaii Football Now. It's episode 31. Jordan and Hunter back with you, continuing our discussion of the defense and breaking it down position by position as we head into spring practice. We talked about the front seven in the first half of this episode. Now we'll get into the secondary, talking some of the defensive backs, and we'll get into the specialists as well on the special team side. You got guys, versatile defensive backs, right? It was a Swiss Army knife back there the last couple of years with guys like Corey Bethley just zooming all over the place, right? Trying to figure this out. You had some really good corners back there that had a lot of success. Cam Lockridge, Cortez Davis, they're gone, right? So there's a whole bunch of open position battles on the back end of this defense at the nickel, right? I mean, it was basically a 5 defensive back alignment for the most part throughout the season. You got some of the local boys, right? Tiger Peterson, you got Peter Manuma back there. Ty Marsh is a candidate as well. At corner, Hugh Nelson is back, who continues, I think, to get better. Jalen Purdue, who was sort of buried on the depth chart and then became this great electric returner late in the season last year. And guys were wondering where the heck this guy came from. Verdell Edwards is in as a transfer. Vaughn Killens is in there. Oregon State transfer Jojo Nelson set to join in the summer. As you were pointing out, Hunter, some of these guys get announced, but it's not always like they just show up the next day and just, get pads. That's not how it sort of works in the process, as he will join after this semester. Jojo Nelson in the summer at safety. Again, there are a lot of openings back there, right? Solo Turner is back. He's another one that just was searching for a home last year, right? He was going to start the season at like tight end, H-back, was on the offensive side of the ball. They move him to the defensive side of the ball. Played a lot late, especially after, Kai Kaneshiro sort of ended his season a little bit early. He played at safety, and I thought he was pretty good in the Wyoming game in particular. It was like, okay, this might be Solo Turner's spot. Yeah. And we'll see how he fits, right? You got Noah Kamana in there, Nalu Emerson, as these guys play out, Kalamaku Cueva, some of these other guys. You got, Wyland Free of Fresno State, Mackenzie Barnes of Arizona, who, like JoJo Nelson, will come in as transfers during the summer, could play at different spots in the secondary. Leonard Lee has also returned to the University of Hawaii after sort of the off-season saga. He's in the mix as well. So you got a bunch of guys, right? I think different skill sets, guys that have, been working for an opportunity. And I'm really curious to see how these pieces come together, because again, we rattled off a bunch of names and there's only so many spots. And, for whatever reason, guys have had more playing time, haven't, some youngsters, some new guys coming in. This is, I mentioned for the linebackers, I'm pretty excited. For the defensive backs, not that I'm not excited. I just think there are a ton of possibilities, and it's a jigsaw that's going to be, Coach Elamimi, Coach Yoro, that defensive staff, like how are they gonna piece it together? What's it gonna look like?
So back to practice on Saturday, this has to be said. Coach Jackson is an absolute unit out there. I was joking with some of the defensive guys that we got to get him a bigger shirt because those shoulders and that back, I mean, it almost put The Rock to shame. I am not saying that lightly. The dude is an absolute stud. And I know that adds a different presence whenever you're on the field talking with the defensive guys. But you mentioned the coaching staff, had to put that out there. And, kind of in that same vein, we ran kind of that nickel looking DB structure this last year. I think primarily because of Corey Bethley, one of the best football instincts guys, what we would call a ball hawk, just someone that finds the football, can make a play on passes, on runs, where he can kind of roam free. He doesn't have to just sit up top and be a free safety. He can kind of make blitzes, make reads on the fly. And obviously, he's at the next level now with the signing with Arizona State, I believe. And so from what I was noticing at practice this last Saturday and then yesterday as well, was kind of more of a cover two, 4 DB set, couple cornerbacks, couple safeties up top. We'll roll down into a man look every once in a while as well. That could just be a base sort of foundation that they're plugging guys into, seeing where they can go. That there's so much involved right now with these coaching staff figuring out, okay, what pieces do we have? Number one, who's doing well? What sort of a scheme do we want to become as a team? That is more on Coach Yoro to kind of figure out and establish. And then someone like Coach Abe Elamimian, thank God he's back on the defensive side of the football rather than being a running back coach last year. I have no idea who made that call. Not pointing any fingers, but get the guy where he is best suited. He's the best recruiter for DBs. That is where he belongs. So having him back on this side of the football is going to set us up for success no matter what.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, his experience over the years and some of the production that his units have gotten while he's been coaching on that side of the football sort of speak for themselves, right? So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't know what the alignment will be like. And I thought it was a great point. You play to your strengths, right? You play to what your personnel allows you to play. And with Corey Bethley last year, a guy who could play basically at all 3 levels of the defense, why not utilize his skill set, right? And maybe there isn't a Corey Bethley on the roster, and that's okay. I'd be surprised if there were. But these guys are all good at something, right? And they'll figure it out. And maybe it's the linebackers, right? So you're trying to get more linebackers on the field and not necessarily some weird alignment, but maybe it's not nickel as your base. It's a little more traditional in how you look at things, but there'll be multiple. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And Coach Yoro said as much right here on this podcast when he was our guest. And if you haven't seen that episode or listened to it, be sure to go check that out in the archives, wherever you get your podcast or follow us on social media. All right, rounding things out, the specialists, Matt Shipley is back who handled both the punting and place kicking duties last year. He, to me, just never got enough credit. And I know we talked about him on this podcast, but he was one of the real bright spots. Like, he was 18 of 21 on field goal attempts. That's pretty darn good. Yeah. At any level, let alone the Division I level. Averaged 41.5 yards on his punt last year. Like, that, very serviceable, right? Then you got Kyler Halverson, who's got a bazooka for a leg. Basically, I forget what the percentage was, but it was well over, I think, 60% on kickoffs, touchbacks. He's a guy that maybe could factor into some of the field goal kicking, right? Because I think with Shipley, a really good, accurate leg, but Halverson clearly had the stronger leg. And that's no knock on Matt Shipley at all. But, maybe Halverson's in the mix if they're looking at some longer field goals or that's an open competition. Who knows? Again, where that all plays out. I'm excited to see guys like Jalen Purdue, we mentioned in the return game, because of what the little flashes and glimpses we saw last year. Dior Scott, another guy that could be versatile in the return game. These are special teams, has a long history at the University of Hawaii. You pointed out Chad Owens Jr. earlier. Chad Owens Sr., special teams maestro, right? Worked his way into the starting lineup after one heck of a breakout season, basically as a first-year guy in the return game. Like, Hawaii has always had quality special teams, whether it's been punters, whether it's been kickers, right? Multiple going to the league at both punting and kicking. Return guys. That's just been sort of an MO. Walk-ons who run down and bust wedges and then knock you on your okole. Like, that's special team sort of lends itself to Hawaii football players, right? Guys that are multi-skilled, that play, backyard football, that are kicking it around, that are running around, knocking people on their butts. Like, this is sort of where Hawaii has hung its hat. And I hope this is another edition of that. But I think we got to feel pretty good about having Shipley and Halverson back in the kicking game. That I think is one of the strong suits.
Yeah, totally. I will mention this too for, fans that are wanting to come down on the field. You're extremely welcome. It's actually a almost too welcoming environment where me and John Ursu were just laughing that pretty much anybody could walk right up next to the sideline. And with that comes its own set of challenges and dangers where during punting period, folks that maybe aren't accustomed to being around a Division I football environment may not be watching for flying footballs, but during punting period, it's windy out there, balls are flying around. You might just get hit in the head with a ball. Let me just throw that out there.
Head on a swivel, baby.
You got to keep your head in a swivel. That's right. Whenever you're out there, to protect yourself, protect maybe the keiki that are out there with you. Just a little public service announcement to everyone listening out there that you could catch a football or you could catch one in the face as well. But with that, it was interesting. Didn't see one field goal kick, not on Saturday, not on Tuesday either. That might. I'm not saying why that is or why that isn't, just from a player group perspective. I didn't see one field goal or one kickoff. A lot of punt recovery. Don't really have any notes on who looked good kicking the ball because didn't see too many, but the punts looked good. They were up in the air, some were spiraling, some were getting hit by the wind, and didn't see any muffed punts on the receiving end either. So that's it's always good to see. And one area of influence that we talked about, Jordan, that we have to get back to our roots. Special teams is not something that we can just throw on the wayside and be like, oh, it'll take care of itself. No, let's get a coach in there responsible for special teams and make sure that we're ironed out there, because it's the nuts and bolts, the plumbing, if you will, of our house that is University of Hawaii football. We need to make sure that is absolutely locked in and ready to go, because we can't afford to lose the ball, lose field position with something like special teams. It cannot happen. We have to be excellent.
Yeah, I'm with you. It is 1/3 of the game, right? In actuality, it doesn't work out to 33%, but it is a huge factor and game-changing type stuff, right? If you're screwing up on special teams, the ramifications of it are felt big time, right? I think it's exponential in just how that goes when it comes to field position, when it comes to momentum and things of that nature. You mentioned guys like John Ursua. I saw a bunch of other alums out there. Before we sort of wrap up the game time segment, it was just really cool. It was really cool to see. I know you touched on this at the beginning of the podcast, but there were some very recognizable faces sort of wandering the sideline around there, which, now that things are opening up and people are allowed back on campus in full force, if you will, right? You don't have to go through the paperwork and things like that. It was kind of cool. It was kind of cool to see these guys out there, and we've talked a lot about it, right? You as an alum of the program, and having talked to other guys, like just that bridge, getting guys back involved in the fold from generation to generation. Like it's just healthy. It's good. It's good for the program. It's the good vitamins that go through making this a healthy endeavor.
Oh yeah, totally. For me, it was a big family day. Offensive lineman John Wa'a. We were the same class at University of Hawaii. Obviously, RJ Hollis is down there doing his thing. A tight end for us, Andrew Ho, was in from California. Just so happened he was here, and so came down for practice. And then obviously our boy John Ursua, who's down there supporting his big brother Jared, and getting ready for OTAs with Seattle in just a couple of weeks. So it's always fun with previous guys, having a good time, laughing, same jokes, same stories. It's kind of a reunion. And then not to mention our teammate Kalakaua Timateo, the Mililani great, down there at practice, and keep your eye out for him. Everyone else listen on this show. You may not have seen the end of Kalakaua Timateo. Let me just put it that way. Not putting anything else out there. Just good to see him there. Good to see him healthy, and in a really good headspace too. I was really impressed with his maturity and his approach to what it might look like if he decided to lace up the old cleats again. He's kind of become a grown-up, which I think we all need to do. And in times past, he would agree that there was some growth that needed to happen on his part before he became a football player again. So outside of that, Jordan, just a lot of great faces down there, media, players, fans. It was a great thing to see, and hope to see a lot more of it as spring ball continues.
Yeah, it's just fun. You didn't ask John what it's like to catch balls from Drew Lock versus Russell Wilson, did you?
He said he hasn't quite gotten to lace it up with Drew Lock just yet, because he's been nursing that knee. But the big thing for John in particular has been his health with his knee and getting that thing back ready to go. Again, not putting things out there or not, but the reality of whenever he gets back and gets cleared, he could potentially become a free agent. So don't be surprised if Mr. Ursua might find himself wearing a different helmet this year. So I'm really excited for him. I've always said he's been the NFL's best kept secret, phenomenal athlete. And I'm really hoping that he gets another opportunity, because John can play. And I know he would make offensive coordinators and quarterbacks very happy. There are a few slot guys with his explosiveness and catching ability out there. So I'm really hopeful that John gets another shot.
Yeah, me too. Right, just that understanding. Such a good route runner, such a good pass catcher, and those are valuable in the way that modern offense is played in the NFL. No doubt about it. Of course, his brother Jared, now the receivers coach at the University of Hawaii, kind of led to some of our questions in the YouTube comments. As usual, our guy from Al from VA. Always kudos to you, Al, because he watches, he gives us his feedback, his critiques, and everything, and we always appreciate it. But he asked, about Hikili Kiliki, right? There's some guys that entered the transfer portal for the University of Hawaii that are still in the portal, as far as we can tell, that haven't found a destination, a landing spot. Kilohana Hassan-Ritter is another. And that's what Al from VA, right, to put two and two together. The obvious question, right, does the Big Island guy, Jared Ursua, who obviously has spent a ton of time in Utah as well, does he lure neighbor Kilohana Hassan-Ritter back to the team, right? I don't know if that's the case. Like, there are some guys out there that I think are just examples of a larger happenstance within college football. Like, there are so many guys that enter the portal. This is in college basketball, based, like all of the sports that sort of get stuck in purgatory, right? Like, there's not always because there's so many guys moving, spots get taken up, freshmen come in, JUCO guys come in, like the spots dry up, and then all of a sudden you're sort of left of as a man without a team. And I hope that's not the case for guys like Kililiki and Hassan-Ritter. And maybe they find a landing spot, but it's just sort of the reality. And as far as we can tell, to answer Al's question, like, I have not seen them latch on anywhere just yet.
Yeah. To kind of speak to that a little bit, I actually ran into Hikili at California Pizza Kitchen just a few weeks back.
Nice.
With his family. And I just want to point to the fact that football is not everything for everyone. And with someone like Keely, where he's got a wife, he's got a young baby, there are other things at the forefront of his mind than necessarily just playing football all day, every day. You got to provide for your family. You got to do what's best for you in your situation. And similarly with, Kilohana Hassan-Ritter, if he is looking to go elsewhere or want to stretch his wings, we got to tip our cap to those guys. It's been a pretty tumultuous last couple of years with University of Hawaii football, and it can take a toll on you. It can take a toll on your family. And I mean, aside from wanting to go elsewhere, they might just be wanting a break as well. So all of those things are yet to be seen, yet to be kind of discovered. And I want to give those guys just credit and a little bit of recognition where, yes, football is important, but it's not everything at the end of the day. You got to take care of what's best for you, your family, and in your future. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Yeah, I mean, these guys got lives, right? They got things going on, and totally understandable. So we'll see. We'll see what the future holds for those guys and some of the others as well that, maybe looking for different opportunities, whether on the football field or off. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting. Al, also, when we had Coach Abe on, he asked us to advertise our guests and allow the listeners to submit questions. We will try, Al, trust me, we will try. Sometimes, like, these things happen and we don't get confirmation until like right before we record. That's just sort of the nature of the business, like these guests, right? And with, it's not like we record at a set time or anything like that every week, like, the morning shows or the midday shows we have on the radio, where things are a little more structured. Sometimes, yeah, we don't get a whole lot of lead up, and that's totally okay. Like, these guys are busy, they're coaching. We got Abe Elamimian like literally straight from the airport after he got back from Las Vegas, where he was running the pro day, and helping with some of the recruiting, and then came home and literally like drove to the office from the airport and jumped on with us. And we weren't 100% sure, not that we didn't trust Abe, but like, flights get delayed, things happen. Had he not made it, we would have totally been understanding. So we will try our best out. Trust me, we're not trying to ice you guys out of being able to ask questions and stuff, because I think that's great. I think it's a great idea, right? And Timmy Chang just did his first call the coach just the other week, which I think is awesome. Getting them involved there, that'll be a fun opportunity for fans to interact. I think Timmy has been very accessible so far, as have some of the other coaches. So that'll be pretty cool to see. But yeah, Al, we'll definitely keep that in mind. I just wanted to put that out there, as we will effort more guests going forward, especially folks associated with the team, coaches and the like. If we get some folks that maybe cover the media and whatnot, maybe that's a little different approach. But yeah, just wanted to mention that for our guy Al. All right, little overtime here to wrap things up as we're sort of running short on time. We mentioned it is turning into a year-round roster building sort of experience, right? That's just sort of the nature of things. That's the reality of it. We talked to Yoro, we talked to Abe about it. But Hawaii over the weekend, or really the last couple of days, got a couple of verbal commitments from some class of 2022 guys. So that's this graduating class, right? Seniors now that have committed to the program. I don't know exactly when they're looking at enrolling. I don't know exactly what the timeline looks like for both of these guys, but I think it's a pretty big deal. You got Cruz Keanu from Kahuku, linebacker, played all over, played some tight end. Like, it's Kahuku, you play all over the place. They put him on both sides of the ball. Part of that defense and that team that just rolled to the state championship this year. He's like 6 feet, 215, class of 2022, as we mentioned, a little under the radar recruit. Was a Polynesian Bowl guy. You got Tasi Tadio from St. Louis, another linebacker. He's 5'11", 225, had some injury issues last season, limited time, but he's another one, a little under the radar recruit. And so these guys aren't, the big 4 or 5-star guys, but having covered them in high school, like, they both can play. They're both maybe a little undersized, from your prototypical like linebacker these days, but they can get around. They can move around. I can see them playing roles. Like, these are the kind of guys that I think Hawaii has developed in the past into very, very serviceable and productive collegiate players. But the other big thing about it is, like, it's Kahuku and St. Louis, and you start getting recruits from those schools and building those relationships and building those bridges. That's vital. Like, you gotta, like, right. If you're going to be the staff at the University of Hawaii, you have to be able to get recruits from Kahuku and St. Louis. And the thing is, like, the 4 or 5-star guys from Kahuku and St. Louis, it's kind of hard to keep them home. Like, they're getting the offers from Nebraska, from Utah, from USC, Oregon. Like, that is what it is. But
Alabama.
They Alabama, right? Yeah, like, that, literally everybody, the big names, right? But there's some other dudes who can play, man. I'm telling you, guys like Keanu, guys like Tadio, they can be in the mix. And so this is a very positive sign to me. I hope both of these guys turn out to be terrific players. But even if they don't, to no fault of their own, I just think it's a big deal that they're getting a Kahuku and a St. Louis guy in the span of a couple of days to believe in this program enough to jump on board.
Totally. And that goes hand in hand with the type of culture that you're establishing and the coaching staff's ability to relate to these guys, speak the same language, and just relate to them at a home ground level. Coach Timmy went to St. Louis, so did Coach Yoro. There's that brotherhood is a real thing. And I smile because Coach Stutzman told us about it every single day with a room full of QBs that did not grow up in Hawaii. So we had to hear about the brotherhood from Coach Stutz every single day. And it's huge for people from Hawaii, players born and raised over here that grew up watching the greats like Colt Brennan, or even before then, Rolo Stutzman, Timmy Chang. It's to play under a legend. It's that stuff is important at the University of Hawaii, and we're starting to see some of the dividends right there of making that shift. And I'm just stoked that it seems to be working, Jordan. It's not like we didn't get local recruits before, but the feeling, the emphasis, the want to stay home could potentially have a little bit more teeth. And then you throw in some wins in there as well, and we could have something special.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Even if you have continually gotten guys from those programs, like that, you got to keep getting guys from those programs, right? It can't just be, we got them in the past and it's going to continue. Like, no, that's not how it works, right? It's an ongoing process. It is a never ending process when it comes to recruitment and keeping those relationships and building on those relationships and capitalizing on those relationships. And we hope those guys turn out to be, two terrific players for the University of Hawaii. Again, not sure what the timeline is, how those guys make their way through the process for the University of Hawaii. But again, big deal getting Keanu and Tadio, I think, in our opinion. So it's a lot of fun. There's quite a few more practices to go remaining in the spring. I know Hunter will be down there. We're going to check it out as well. Jaren's got you covered on the digital side. This has been a lot of fun, man. This is the time where I think things get kicked into gear, and we really start seeing some of those fingerprints of this coaching staff really start to take shape as they're molding the clay here. And so we'll wrap things up here on episode 31 of Hawaii Football Now, again presented by Xanthison, Spectrum Mobile, and Hawaii USA FCU. Be sure to hit us up on the social media platforms. You can drop us a line on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. When this gets posted, you can also hit us up directly at Jordan Helle and at All Around ATH for Hunter. All right, for Hunter and our guy Jaron on the controls, Jordan saying aloha. We'll see you next week, episode 32 on the horizon. Hawaii Football Now. Go check out spring practice, everybody. Aloha.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helle and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.